Dear viewers, we are standing in the center of Kansas City, which in just a few short hours has transformed into a vast body of water. The torrential rains, which began last night and continued into this morning, have left the entire area submerged. Streets that were once bustling are now nothing more than raging rivers. The water has risen to waist level, making it extremely dangerous to move around the city. Many residents have had to move to higher floors, leaving all their belongings and vehicles behind under the floodwaters. We have just received information from the meteorological agency that the amount of rainfall in the past few hours has exceeded the warning threshold, and the current situation is extremely serious. We are witnessing a haunting scene as the people of Cannes struggle against the floodwaters. As you can see, many are clinging tightly to lampposts and fences just to keep themselves from being swept away. Children are being carried in their parents' arms, with families trying to keep each other safe amidst the raging currents. Many have no choice but to cling onto vehicles that have been trapped by the flood. The atmosphere is tense, with cries echoing from all directions, signaling that the situation is becoming increasingly dire. Rescue teams are on the scene, but reaching those in need is proving to be extremely difficult due to the deep water and strong currents. We can clearly see the fear and desperation on the faces of those trying to survive this devastating flood. A multitude of vehicles, from cars and motorbikes to large buses, have been swept away by the floodwaters with ease. Cars, once the safe mode of transportation for the people, have now become small toys being pushed back by the rushing waters. Some vehicles have been overturned, drifting aimlessly in the raging currents. We witnessed a terrifying scene where a large truck was carried away and trapped in the middle of the flood, unable to escape. As the water continues to rise, these vehicles are now barely visible, with only small parts protruding above the surface. Many tried to move their cars before the flood struck, but it was too late. Now all of the vehicles are submerged, becoming victims of this devastating flood. We can see the entire city of Cannes submerged under the floodwaters. Streets that were once bustling transportation hubs have now turned into raging rivers. Water cascades down from the hills surrounding the city, forming small waterfalls that flow directly into the center. Homes and high-rise buildings appear to be swallowed by the vast sea of water. Looking down from above, we can clearly see the flood sweeping away everything in its path. The entire city seems to be divided into small islands amidst the violent waters. Authorities are deeply concerned about the risk of landslides and the severe damage the flood may cause to the city's infrastructure. We have reached and spoken to many residents in the severely flooded areas, and the stories they shared are filled with horror and fear. One resident recounted that in less than an hour, the water kept rising relentlessly, pouring into their home. We couldn't do anything. The water just kept rushing in, and everything was submerged in an instant. We only had time to grab our children and run to the upper floors, he said in shock. An elderly woman also shared that she had to climb to the highest floor of her house to escape the floodwaters. I have never seen anything so terrifying. Everything is underwater, and we don't know what to do except wait for help, she said, her voice trembling. These accounts only add to the overwhelming sense of fear and helplessness that the people here are facing. Rescue teams and police have arrived at the scene, deploying emergency relief measures. Fire trucks, rescue boats, and medical personnel have been dispatched to the most severely flooded areas. However, the strong and relentless floodwaters have made it extremely difficult to reach residents who are isolated. Many roads have been blocked, and rescue vehicles are unable to pass through due to deep flooding. Temporary relief stations have been set up in some safe areas, providing food, drinking water, and medical supplies to the affected residents. However, as the rain continues to pour, the situation remains very tense, and authorities are urging people to follow instructions and stay indoors to ensure their safety. As you can see, in front of us is one of the largest parking garages in the city, now completely submerged in water. Cars, motorbikes, and even public transportation vehicles are trapped under the murky floodwaters. The vehicle owners, despite their efforts to move their cars out of danger, were too late. Some now stand helplessly watching as their cars slowly sink beneath the water, unable to do anything. We spoke with one car owner who said he tried to move his car before the flood hit, but there wasn't enough time. "I never imagined things would happen so quickly. All we can do now is watch," he shared in frustration. These damages not only affect people's property, but have also completely paralyzed the city's transportation system. Authorities have now begun to assess the initial damage, and the numbers are rising by the hour. Preliminary estimates suggest that hundreds of homes, shops, and businesses in the city have been deeply flooded, causing significant property damage. Many areas have experienced complete power outages, the transportation system has come to a standstill, and major roads have been destroyed. Experts predict that the economic losses could reach tens of millions of euros, and the recovery process following this disaster could take several weeks or even months. The city government has called for international assistance to support rescue and reconstruction efforts. Police, rescue teams, and volunteers are working tirelessly to ensure the safety of the residents. We can see fire trucks, police vehicles, and rescue boats slowly moving through the flooded streets. Many areas have been completely isolated, making rescue operations extremely difficult. Rescue teams have had to use small boats to reach flooded homes and rescue people who are trapped. However, as the water continues to rise, the rescue efforts are expected to last longer. Authorities are urging residents to follow instructions and not to move on their own, to avoid putting themselves and the rescue teams in danger. The National Meteorological Agency has issued an emergency warning about the weather conditions in the coming hours. Rainfall is expected to continue increasing, heightening the risk of flooding and landslides. Areas near rivers, streams, and low-lying regions are at further risk of flooding. Residents are advised to evacuate immediately if they receive a warning from authorities. Meteorological experts also fear that the city's drainage system will not be able to cope if the heavy rain continues at its current intensity. The situation could become even more severe in the next few hours. In many apartment buildings and high-rises, residents have had to move to higher floors to escape the rising floodwaters. The ground floors and parking garages have been completely submerged. We see many people standing on balconies and at windows, waiting for help from rescue teams. An atmosphere of worry and tension is everywhere. Some people have had to leave all their possessions behind. We only had time to grab essential items. Everything else is underwater. One resident shared, "Many families are trying to remain calm, but it's clear that everyone is anxious about what will happen next." The people of Cannes can't help but recall the devastating flood of 2015, when the city was also submerged under floodwaters. However, this time, the situation seems even more severe. The city's drainage system has been overwhelmed by the sheer volume of rain. Some residents we interviewed said they had never witnessed such a catastrophic flood. This time, everything happened so fast, we couldn't react in time. Everything was submerged in a sea of water within just a few hours, one resident shared. Increasingly, there are growing concerns about the city's ability to manage future floods, especially as climate change continues to have a strong impact on weather patterns. The main roads in the city have now been completely blocked. The Transportation Authority has issued a ban on traffic on several key routes, such as Avenue de la Republique and the roads leading in and out of the city center. Residents have been advised not to go outside and to strictly follow the instructions from the authorities. However, some people have still attempted to leave the city despite the warnings, resulting in several dangerous incidents. We witnessed a car being swept away as the driver tried to cross a flooded road. The situation remains very dangerous, and authorities are working hard to bring it under control. Although the storm has passed, the aftermath is extremely severe. Rescue teams and city workers are doing their best to clean up and restore the city. Many houses and shops remain deeply submerged in water, and roads are covered in mud. The process of pumping water and cleaning up is being carried out urgently, but given the large volume of water, it will take a considerable amount of time. However, the tireless efforts of the rescue teams have given hope to the residents. They are doing everything they can to restore normal life after this disaster.